Warning, the views and opinions expressed in this presentation are those of the producer and those appearing in the show and do not necessarily represent the views of DerryCam, the Town of Derry, or any of its staff or affiliates. Hi, I'm Anthony Henry. Welcome back to America's Ass. We're on episode 39. Finally spring, finally getting some nicer weather, and we're almost at the end of our legislative session. Weeks away. And we're almost at the end of season 4, so that's exciting. But anyway, I'm here with Representative Jonah Wheeler from Peterborough. So please take a minute to introduce yourself.
Hi, Anthony. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It's nice to, as you said, be in some spring weather. Although it's a little bit cold today. I woke up this morning to there being some flurries outside of my window and a little dusting of snow on my car. So I was sad to see that on the first day of spring.
No snow in Derry.
It's my grandmother's birthday, so I'm expecting that she stole all the sun in Florida.
Happy birthday.
But thank you. I'm Representative Jonah O'Ryan Wheeler. I serve the towns of Peterborough and Sharon. I ran for the legislature in the last midterm election at 19 years old because, frankly, I am sick and tired of our government being run by corporations from every level. It seems like private industry, has control over the agencies that they are supposed to be regulated by, whether it's FDA being controlled by the pharmaceutical industry or EPA being controlled by big oil and big gas lobbyists that are aiming to pollute our air and water for profit. I am sick and tired of that as a young person who'd like there to be a future for me. And frankly, I know, Anthony, that there's a lot of bipartisan appeal to that message.
There is.
Because people are, whether it's called crony capitalism or the young people who call it socialism, people are sick and tired of the market being as skewed as it is, and it doesn't really matter what we call it because people are feeling the effects of it every day. And it's, for me, just a lack of there being a strong public sector here in New Hampshire and this country at large, and frankly our world, that is willing to take a stand to these private entities. So, rather than yell at my phone about this over and over again, doom scroll, as we like to call it, I had to do something about it. And I was maybe 14 years old, and I started organizing, doing different rallies and getting people to sign petitions and going out there and volunteering in every way that was available to me to volunteer. And then ultimately, through that process, going to the legislature and testifying. I had always been a political nerd and a nerd for the legislature, a nerd for the legislative process, so that was very comfortable for me, and I always enjoyed going there and getting to testify. And one of the things that I noticed was that there was a lack of working class voices there in the legislature, especially on the Democratic side, people not talking about firsthand the experiences that I think most of the people here in this state were going through, and that I knew that they were going through because I had gone through it myself, being born and raised to a single mother here in the Monadnock region, and doing everything she could to keep a roof over our heads and food in our stomach, and still kind of worrying about the future that she had. I think ultimately she did very well because that's the spirit of our people. But that spirit should be reflected in government, and that's why I ran for government. That's why I do what I do in the legislature now. I serve in the Criminal Justice Committee, and I have for the last year and 4 months, coming up on 4 months. And it's a privilege to be able to do it and to go around to speak to people here in Derry. I've been to Derry a few times for a couple of different issues, and you get some great people here, and we've got great people in New Hampshire in general, and I think we just need public servants that are going to reflect those people at every level. So it's been a pleasure to get to meet you over the course of that journey. You get to meet great people, and long-lasting friendships come of that. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming on, and thank you for running, because I agree with you. We do need a new generation in government. People like you and Valerie McDonald.
Valerie's great.
She is. She's a alumni of the show as well. People that are young and that are like you, standing up because they've just had enough, no matter what issue it may be on either side of the aisle.
Absolutely.
People have just had enough, and this generation is rising up.
They really are. They really are. And that shows that you're a 16-year-old who's here speaking full-throated. You've done 39 episodes. As I understand it, you're a week away from your year anniversary doing this show. Starting this at 15, that's pretty amazing. And there's a lot of young people out there who, no matter where you might land ideologically, and all of us have our disagreements, but that passion, that drive, that want to be better public servants, that's what I think is going to save this country. And it's, I think you're a good example of that as well.
Well, thank you for that, and I completely agree. It's people like that that are going to save America.
Absolutely.
So let's get into it. One bill that we talked about 2 episodes ago when I had Tom Mannion, Emily Phillips, and town council candidate Jack Webb on, now town council-elect, he did win. Jack Webb's awesome. He's going to do so good here in Derry. But defend the guard. It was a big bill when it was voted on. It had bipartisan support and bipartisan dissent. It was really interesting to see. So for people who didn't watch that episode, give, I guess, a brief synopsis, and then we'll talk about it.
Well, thank you. I mean, that is one of the more important bills that I think we saw in this term in the legislature, brought forward by Representative Mannion, who himself is an Iraq War veteran. He knows exactly what the importance of this bill is, having seen what he saw over there in the Middle East. And the bill itself would restrict New Hampshire's National Guard from being called to war unless a declaration of war had been declared by Congress. For those in the audience who aren't aware, the Congress has not declared war when using military force since, as I understand it, World War II. And all of us in the audience, you don't need a 21-year-old to tell you this, understand that this country has been at war, I think, the entire time after World War II. There might have been a year or two here and there of peace, but whether it's Korea, Laos, or Cambodia, which were bombing campaigns, or Lebanon, or Afghanistan, or name it, of the countries that we have gone to and, frankly, brutalized for economic profit, using our men and women who, let's be clear here, they sign up because they believe in this country. They think that the leaders of this country understand and believe in it as much as they do. And they think that when they're called to war, that their leaders are going through it and making that decision in a cogent and deliberative way. But what we've seen with all these wars, and I think most prolifically, the most prolific example that we have is Iraq. They lied us into war. And when you have the greatest country on the face of the planet militarily, economically, politically, in so many ways, powerfully, I mean, it's unmatched in the history of the world. Lying, the leaders of that country lying about our reasons for going into war, and then decimating a country like Iraq. I mean, we killed 1 million people, and hundreds of thousands of our soldiers died. And a countless number of the ones who came back are forever shaken by what they saw. And, again, I as a 21-year-old can't articulate necessarily what that is, but I can express to you and to the audience what I've seen from the people who have very passionately described what they've seen there. It's horrific. And the fact that the Congress has not taken its responsibility when using those men and women in that service in our military to declare war. They've just sort of hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil when asked the question. That's a moral travesty. And it's a Congress that's more concerned with the profits of its donors than it is with the oath that they took to uphold the Constitution of this country and to protect its people. Defend the Guard is the states of this country saying that we have an opportunity here to be dominoes that will fall in actually reigniting the Constitution here in the United States of America and having our Congress people uphold that Constitution. And if they're going to send our men and women to war, declaring war against the country that they've decided to go to war with. Using the authorization of the use of military force and allowing the president to have unilateral say over when and where our men and women go to war is a dangerous thing. And it's not the constitutional republic that was set up in the 1700s by our founding fathers. And they would be very sad to see where we're at now. And it was a pleasure to be able to, I played a very small role in passing that legislation. I testified and I spoke to a few people in the background about it. There were people like Representative Mannion, Representative Diane Power, people who, Representative Power has a husband who's in the National Guard, a colonel in the National Guard, if I'm not mistaken. And they understand the importance of this legislation. The members of the National Guard understand the importance of the legislation.
Representative Love from Derry.
Representative Love was very important to this. And there were so many of us who, military men and women who serve in the legislature, and military men and women who are spouses, who have spouses who are military spouses, who have husbands and wives and who are in the military who understood this issue. And there were just people like myself who have seen a country lose its way and lose what the promises that we uphold, that we promised to uphold on paper 200 some odd years ago. We have to do better. And I think I forget what the exact vote count was, but fortunately it was over 200 and something people that supported this legislation, like you said, in a bipartisan way. And we just got to make sure that this legislation passes the state Senate and goes to the governor's desk to protect the National Guard here in New Hampshire. We can't, as New Hampshire people, necessarily solve the fact that our government is being run by a complex of the military and industry. But what we can do is take principled stands against it to protect the people who are under our jurisdiction, which is the New Hampshire State Guard, and we have the opportunity to do that with this.
Dwight Eisenhower did warn in his final address against the military-industrial
That's what
complex. He said it was the most dangerous thing in our nation, by far.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I had used President Eisenhower's quote in my testimony against this bill, and that is a prescient warning to what has happened to our country if we don't, I recommend that his words are very prescient, and I recommend that everyone watch that speech. It's available on YouTube. It's his farewell address to the nation after being president. This is a man who led us through World War II, anyone who understands President Eisenhower, he was not afraid to use military force. This was a very tough person. But he understood that a military that was run by industry would become too powerful to stop. And when we have a black budget that's an indescribable amount, when we're having the president authorize a budget that has the military spending at somewhere around $830 billion, where actual spending is close to $1 trillion, and where they have not passed an audit in decades. We should all, as citizens of this country, be very concerned about where our unchecked power is leading at every level, whether it's the private corporate level of the military. Unchecked power has led to the destruction of this constitutional republic, and hopefully there are people on both sides that are willing to be able to save it. And I think Defend the Guard proved that when we passed that this year.
So the reason I brought up Representative Love was that one big thing that he stressed after this was passed, he was friends with one or two National Guardsmen that called him and wanted him to thank the entire legislature for passing that on behalf of actual New Hampshire Guardsmen. So one final question I'll ask you before we move on to the next topic. What do you think is going to happen in the Senate and the governor's desk? Do you think it'll make it through?
Well, unfortunately, the Senate, and I have respect for every member that serves there, as much, I have respect for the office of State Senate. Unfortunately, I think the lobbyists and agency heads have a lot more power and sway over our state's Senate than they do over the House of Representatives. And you see legislation that's counter to the status quo passing through the House of Representatives here because we are the people's house, and we're all more connected to the people. It costs less to run for state representative, in some cases almost nothing. So regular people can run. There's a barrier to entry when it comes to the time that it takes to serve and the fact that we don't get paid, and those barriers need to be addressed. But there is definitely more quote-unquote regular people in the State House. The State Senate, it costs at least $100 to run, to win a State Senate seat, at least. And in some cases, the state senators have coffers of up to $500,000+.
Yeah.
So we're seeing there's a big dichotomy between the State Senate and the State House. Unfortunately, I think that means the brass of the New Hampshire State National Guard has come out against the Defend the Guard, as I understand, despite the fact that most of their members and colonels who have served in the National Guard and people who have served in the military more broadly, and military men and women who are serving in the State House right now have supported this, are against the legislation. I think a lot of that has to do with the relationship that they have with the DOD, and I think the DOD liaison came out against this. People like that have a lot of sway with the State Senate. I'm not going to make a prediction on what happens with the bill, but I think that layout can make it clear for the people in your audience where we're at. The bill has not failed the State Senate. That's why I won't make a prediction yet. Because what we've seen here in New Hampshire, and we've seen this with a number of other issues, if the people come out, if the legislators get enough emails, and if they feel that pressure, if people are there and they show up and they say, I need you to pass Defend the Guard. If you contact your state senator and you say, I'm a citizen of this state, I'm a constituent of yours, and I want you to pass Defend the Guard, they will pass Defend the Guard. So I'm not going to make a prediction. Hopefully we get enough pressure to get people to pass that legislation, and the same with the governor.
And Derry, as we talked about last episode, definitely knows how to get out there and pressure our elected officials. We talked about that extensively last episode, but I will say next week I am excited to see our 2 new members get sworn in. I talked about both our new school board members. Katie DeLay, she's been at every meeting over the past 2 years. She's a mother. She's a ball of fire. She's gonna do a lot up there. And Wilbert Danger, again, he's an immigrant.
That's a name. You know.
Wilbert Danger, yeah, great guy. He's an immigrant from Haiti. He works for several nonprofits, and he's about to get his doctorate in education.
Wow. And,
don't quote me on this, but I believe he may be the first black elected official in Derry's history, which is a big deal for Derry.
Big, yeah.
So
congratulations to Mr. Danger.
And Miss DeLay.
Miss DeLay.
Yep. I'm so excited to see them get sworn in Tuesday. And it'll be interesting to see how the school board responds to their stuff getting voted down. But anyway, I'm off topic. Before we end, there was another thing I wanted to talk about. So a couple months back, there was a big controversy with something you spoke about. I think you know where I'm going with the bill regarding transgender surgeries for minors. You spoke out against the bill. You were one of there was 10 Democrats, I think, that voted against it.
There was 12 of us.
12.
Yeah.
And you got a lot of hate from the Democratic Party, which was unusual because, you know, you're a member of the Democratic Party. And I have never seen, you know, the upper brass attack someone in their own party like they did to you. Literally, they were coming at you in the hallway. So you don't have to go at it too much. I'm sure you've talked about it a lot more than you probably want to. But yeah, I'm sure the audience would find it interesting.
Well, I mean, the only thing I really have to say about it is that it's frankly amazing that it's even being discussed in the legislature. And I think wherever you fall on this issue, most people can agree with that. This is an issue that it's a very emotional issue, and this, I think, is the case with a lot of the issues that we face in the State House. People have a deep connection to this issue. What was clear to me, and the 12 people that voted, the 12 Democrats that voted to support HB 619 as amended, was this legislation solely banned the surgery for minors, child transition sex surgery. And I get that this is a very emotional issue for people. I get the suicide rate argument. The fact of the matter is, these surgeries are irreversible. And when you're a child, as with tanning beds, as the legislature decided a number of years ago, a few years ago, as with a whole host of other things, both good and bad and neutral, children cannot make those decisions, we've decided. I truly could not care less what somebody does as an adult. You're an adult and you can do whatever you want to with your body. If you want to make an irreversible decision to do whatever you want to use a different topic, I mean, if you want to drink your life away, you're able to do that. As long as you're not hurting another person, you're able to do that. You shouldn't, but you're able to do it. You're able to do a whole host of other things. You're able to tattoo yourself. Some people might think you should, some people think you shouldn't. You're able to do that. But when you're under 18, your brain isn't fully developed, and legally, you're a minor. And frankly, I and the 12 other Democrats and the majority of the House felt that it wasn't appropriate that children should be able to make that decision for themselves. And I get the fact that the major medical institutions in this country have come out in support of this surgery for minors, for the care in general. I think that those agencies are wrong. I think they have been wrong in the past. And I think one thing that needs to be clear to people is sometimes the drumbeat of unanimity prevents us from thinking with nuance about these issues. And as I said on the floor, I support transgender people's right to exist. I believe in non-discrimination laws. I'm a live and let live person at the end of the day. I'm not going to say anything about somebody who's not harming another. If you're doing something to yourself, personally, if I've got nothing nice to say, then I won't say it. And I have great respect for people that are transgender. This is about children who might be feeling a confusion between the two, and that has been presented. And I think there has been some interesting reporting on the WPATH files, WPATH, the World, don't ask me to say the acronym, but it's a transgender healthcare organization. There's been interesting reporting about them. I suggest that people look into that a little bit. I think that the major medical organizations are wrong on this one, and I think sometimes it's important for the legislature to, in cases like this, take a step in when the agencies, medical institutions, the experts who are deemed irrefutable. Sometimes it's appropriate for the public sector to step in and say that they are refutable, especially when there are other experts who have been experts and people in the industry, both healthcare and otherwise, that have come out and warned legislatures across this country about some of the effects that this has had on minors and some other aspects of it that are more concerning. So I support, it's tough. Nobody wants to be labeled as anything, you know. Everyone wants to make sure everyone's happy. And I, as a liberal person, I believe in that too. You know, I don't want to upset anybody. And I'm sorry that this has upset so many people. But I think what's clear is, to me, to many of the people who voted on this issue in the legislature, and frankly most people on the ground, and many medical professionals themselves who disagree with, and whistleblowers from the industry who also disagree with, the unanimity that's being presented right now in the mainstream, that this surgery specifically, we're not talking broadly about transgenderism or what the conversation around that is, but the surgeries specifically are, they go a bridge too far for minors, and I think that's where the legislature has landed in this. And when it comes to the attacks, that was expected, and
comes with the job, I guess.
Exactly. You are an elected punching bag when you run for office, both good and bad, and you have to have thick skin to be able to make hard decisions like that.
I agree with what you just said about the bill. I really don't have anything to add. I did misspeak, by the way. He voted for the bill. When I said against, I meant went against his own party.
Right.
Yeah. That's just, my
my
brain.
Really, this shouldn't be a partisan issue.
Yeah.
And that's what I said on the floor. I think it was unfortunate. I think people have realized that there needs to be nuance on this issue, and moving forward, the caucus and the legislature more broadly has been discussing this as such.
That's very good. So we are just about out of time, so feel free to give a closing statement.
Well, how do you close after that kind of question? But I appreciate being on. I congratulate you on your year of doing a show like this. I'm not necessarily one to go on television shows, or I answer my print media calls sometimes, but other than that, I try not to go on the TV. But I appreciate this conversation here, and always good to be able to talk about where we're at as a country. And Derry has a lot of people on both sides who are very committed to making sure that this country and this government works for them as people, that we have a people-centered government and not a private corporation-centered government that works for them. So thank you very much, Anthony, for allowing me to speak on that here in this show, and I congratulate you on your year and look forward to seeing another year of great work from you.
Well, thank you. I look forward to seeing the rest of what you do in this term, and I hope you get reelected.
Thank you.
All right, I'll see you guys next week. I'm Anthony Henry. This has been America's Ass. Thank you for watching.